When we think of weapons of mass destruction, we imagine glowing uranium and computer-guided missiles. But humanity's obsession with absolute destruction didn't start in a modern lab. It started millennia ago, with wood, rope, and some terrifyingly brilliant minds. Welcome to the era of ancient superweapons. Our first stop, the Siege of Syracuse, 214 BC. The Roman Republic sent a massive fleet to crush the city. They expected a quick victory. What they got was a nightmare engineered by one math nerd, Archimedes. Meet the Claw of Archimedes, an ancient anti-ship weapon that literally fished for Roman galleys. This wasn't magic, it was pure physics. Using a massive crane equipped with a grappling hook, defenders dropped the metal claw onto Roman ships. Once hooked, a system of pulleys and levers, operated by oxen or massive counterweights inside the city walls, violently pulled the ship upwards. Then, they just let go. The sudden drop would capsize or completely shatter the massive wooden vessels. Romans were so terrified that if they even saw a piece of rope hanging over the wall, they would panic and sail away. It's the ultimate proof that a deep understanding of levers is far more dangerous than a big sword. But what if you don't want to lift a ship? What if you just want to watch it burn? Enter the Byzantine Empire and their closely guarded state secret, Greek fire. Created in the 7th century, this liquid incendiary weapon was the ancient equivalent of napalm. It was pumped through bronze tubes mounted on Byzantine ships, essentially acting as a medieval flamethrower. But here is the most terrifying part. Greek fire couldn't be put out with water. In fact, water supposedly made it burn hotter. It clung to enemy armor, wood, and even burned on the surface of the sea itself. Enemy fleets were completely incinerated, and the psychological terror was unmatched. The exact chemical formula was such a closely guarded secret that it was entirely lost to history when the empire fell. Modern chemists believe it was a mixture of quicklime, saltpeter, sulfur, and naphtha, but nobody knows for sure. The Byzantines basically held the monopoly on absolute naval dominance for centuries, all thanks to a recipe they refused to share. Let's move from the sea to the land, specifically 15th century Korea during the Joseon dynasty. Suppose you have thousands of invading soldiers charging at you, and you think, I wish I could shoot 200 arrows at them in a single second. Good news, the Hwacha is here. This beautiful piece of wooden artillery was essentially a massive multi-rocket launcher. It consisted of a two-wheeled cart carrying a launch pad with up to 200 cylindrical holes. Each hole held a singajon, a specialized arrow, attached to a paper tube filled with gunpowder. When the fuse was lit, it triggered a terrifying chain reaction. In the blink of an eye, a swarm of explosive arrows rained down on the enemy. The Hwacha wasn't known for its pinpoint sniper accuracy. It didn't need to be. It relied on overwhelming area of effect damage. During the Imjin War, Hwachas successfully defended Korean fortresses against massive Japanese samurai armies, proving that sometimes quantity has a quality all its own. But what if you want high-volume fire without the explosive fireworks? Let's cross over to ancient China and look at the Zhuge Nu, or the repeating crossbow. Invented around the 4th century BC and later perfected by the famous strategist Zhuge Liang. This weapon was the ancient world's submachine gun. A standard medieval European crossbow was powerful but agonizingly slow to reload. The Zhuge Nu solved this by featuring a top-mounted magazine containing up to 10 bolts. By simply pushing and pulling a single lever, the archer could draw the string, drop a new bolt into the barrel, and fire. A trained soldier could empty the entire magazine in just 15 seconds. While the bolts lacked the armor-piercing kinetic energy of a heavy crossbow, they were often tipped with deadly poison to compensate. One tiny scratch was enough. Entire formations of Chinese infantry armed with these weapons could create a continuous, overlapping storm of poisoned darts that made advancing physically impossible. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, where walls were getting thicker and castles seemed impenetrable. You needed a siege engine that could crack stone like an egg. You needed the counterweight trebuchet. Unlike earlier catapults that relied on the tension of twisted ropes, the trebuchet relied on gravity. It featured a massive throwing arm balanced on a fulcrum. On the short end, a colossal wooden box filled with tons of rocks or lead. On the long end, a sling holding the projectile. When the counterweight dropped, The long arm whipped upward with terrifying velocity. This transferred immense kinetic energy to the sling, which released a 100-kilogram boulder at over 200 kilometers per hour. The physics are so elegant, yet so devastating. It could accurately smash fortress walls from a safe distance. And if they ran out of rocks, they would fling diseased animal carcasses or even dead bodies over the walls to spread plague. Biological warfare, delivered via medieval gravity cannon. But siege warfare is slow. Sometimes you need to cause sheer panic on an open battlefield. For that, ancient empires like the Persians and the Seleucids deployed scythed chariots. Imagine a heavy wooden chariot pulled by 4 armored horses. Now, attach meter-long, razor-sharp steel blades to the wheel hubs. The strategy was brutally simple. Line them up and charge directly into the enemy infantry at top speed. The goal wasn't just to slice through soldiers, but to break their tight formations and cause widespread terror. Horses naturally avoid running directly into a solid wall of humans, but the blades extended far enough to create a bloody path regardless. However, they had a fatal flaw. Smart commanders like Alexander the Great simply ordered their troops to open up gaps in their lines. The chariots would just drive harmlessly right through the empty spaces, completely missing their targets, and then get surrounded. A terrifying concept, defeated by simply taking a step to the side. Finally, we travel across the ocean to Mesoamerica. The Aztecs didn't have steel, bronze, or gunpowder, but they had volcanic glass. And they used it to create the Macuahuitl, often called the obsidian chainsaw. It was a flat wooden club with deep grooves carved into the edges. In these grooves, the Aztecs embedded razor-sharp obsidian blades using natural resin. Obsidian can be fractured to an edge thinner than a surgical scalpel. When swung with the force of a trained jaguar warrior, the Macuahuitl didn't just cut, it shredded. Spanish conquistadors recorded with sheer horror that a single strike from this weapon could decapitate a horse. Because the blades were brittle, they might shatter on impact, leaving microscopic glass shards inside the wound. It was a weapon perfectly adapted to its environment, proving that advanced metallurgy isn't strictly necessary if you know how to weaponize a volcano. From mathematical cranes fishing for ships to wooden carts vomiting rockets, human ingenuity has always found creative ways to destroy. These 7 weapons showcase a profound understanding of physics, chemistry, and mechanics. Long before the scientific revolution, they weren't just crude tools of violence, they were the cutting-edge technology of their time. They shaped empires, defended cities, and altered the course of history. Today, we look at them as museum pieces or video game power-ups. But to the people standing on the other side of the battlefield, they were the literal apocalypse. So, the next time you think ancient history is just guys poking each other with sticks, remember the giant medieval gravity cannons and the unquenchable fire of the Byzantine Empire. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe if you want to survive the next historical siege.